Hi guys, so it is the afternoon now. I got done with work for the day, so I decided to go ahead and make the rest of my video here. So I went over this morning about, a basic definition of asexuality and a little bit of my experience with it, and the fact that I was interested in joining AVEN, the Facebook group, to connect with other people that may have similar experiences, that may have things that they have had experiences that are similar to mine, that are also ace and things of that nature. So anyway, I joined the group, and for a while it was kind of interesting, and I would read through various things, and I was finding some value in the group as far as the Facebook group goes, and I was able to learn some things. And apparently there's different subdivisions. When I first learned about being ace, I really didn't understand all the different subdivisions of it, and I do think some of the subdivisions would be what I would consider valid, and then some of them just go completely off the rails, and I'll get into that because this is supposed to be a video about why I'm no longer in that Facebook group. So the first thing I guess I'll address is all the micro labels. And they were getting really annoying. And I've even seen a lot of other people in the group complain that there's like 10,000 micro labels. So, some of them make sense. For example, just because somebody is asexual, it doesn't mean they're aromantic, which means they might want a romantic relationship with somebody just without the sex part. Or they might not be sexually attracted to somebody and still have sex with a person, but only because the other person wants it. It's more of like a, I don't really want to do this, but I'll do it for you type of thing. Or sometimes they actually enjoy the act, but they're not attracted to the person. So there's different subdivisions. So also, like the main ones I would say would be, like if somebody's aromantic, that would be like what I am, where I'm just not interested in romance at all. I don't want to go on dates or get married or, any of that stuff. There's subdivisions of that as well, but I'm not going to get into that right now. And then there would be like homoromantic, where they're homosexually attracted to, or homoromantically attracted to other people without the homosexual part. Like they're not sexually attracted to other people because it's still under the ace umbrella, but they would be attracted to the same sex. So they'd still be like gay or a lesbian or something like that, but they wouldn't be doing the sex part. So that would be homoromantic. And then of course there's heteroromantic, which I think most aces are probably heteroromantic aces, if I had to make a guess. And that's where they want the straight relationship. Like they may even want to get married and or have kids or things like that. They want the straight relationship, but they don't want the sex part. So they might be an asexual and heteroromantic. So those labels actually make sense to me. And if I've completely lost you, that's not even the beginning of this stuff. And those are just the basic separations. So if you are already lost, believe me, if you try to join that group, you would get completely lost. They want to divide everything up into these itty bitty categories. And I understand, like aromantic, you're not interested in anybody. Homoromantic, you want a homosexual romantic relationship. And heteroromantic, you want a heterosexual relationship that's not sexual, Now I understand all of that. But what I don't understand is they really want to divide everybody up into these teeny tiny micro labels. So like under like aromantic, they've got like, at least 10 different labels of aromantic, And then under homoromantic, they've got like 20, 30 labels. And so like everybody, I feel like it's narcissistic past a certain point. Like there's just describing how you are and who you're attracted to and what you want out of life, and that makes sense, okay? But what doesn't make sense are these teeny tiny itty bitty categories where like they want to slot you so precisely into them, and then they want to make that an entire identity. And then they want to act like these are some real categories rather than just something of convenience, and or some narcissistic micro label they want to apply to themselves. And I know some people accuse asexuals of being narcissistic anyway, or selfish or whatever, so I understand that might come off as really hostile for me to say that. But I'm going to tell you right now, I just don't think most of those micro labels are really valid. I think the larger ones are, in the sense that they're descriptive. There's quite a few people that can fit in under those labels, and you can understand them. It's not like you have to have an advanced degree in LGBTQ studies to understand them. They're just broad categories of people. And I'm not saying that like further subdividing things is necessarily bad, but I will say that gets very academic, and I don't think it's very useful. And I don't think it necessarily reflects anything in the real world. It's more of a mind exercise, or like a, let's dissect every little bit of how people are different. It's like one person might like to be asexual while looking at birds, so they're an aves asexual. It's like, it gets that ridiculous, and I am not joking. It gets incredibly ridiculous. They want to slice everybody up. So, or you could be an asexual who only feels attracted to people when they're walking through a garden, so that makes you a botanical sexual. And like they'll literally come up with the most ridiculous stuff. Okay, so and on top of that, not only will they come up with this stuff, but they'll make it their own flag, their own label. They're and then they'll act like they were born that way, and it's complete nonsense. I'm sorry, but it's complete nonsense, okay? And so that's one of the reasons why I got annoyed with AVEN. Now, that stuff I could put up with, because I understand people are not, they're just coming into the knowledge that they're like this, that they're not attracted to other people. That's hard enough, and maybe they just want to further explore, well, how precisely do I fit into this? And maybe they want to add some more detail to how they see themselves or something like that, and that's fine. But it's just, past a certain point, it gets ridiculous. It's like somebody could say, oh, well, I'm only rarely feel attracted to people who wear tennis shoes or something, and then they would make their own micro label for that. Then they would make their own flag for it, and it got completely out of control ridiculous. So, I understand like aromantic, homoromantic, heteroromantic. I understand that. I don't understand all this other stuff. It blows my mind. Anyway, then there's there's a couple of other micro labels that I would say are probably valid, and so one of them would be like a gray sexual, and then there would be demisexual. So they would be kind of the in-betweens. So like they usually don't experience attraction to other people, but they do sometimes. So I think it's the demisexuals, when they can only really feel attraction once they make a connection with somebody. So like a regular, what I've been told is that a regular straight person, so like if I were a regular straight, completely heterosexual female, that I would look at somebody like Jason Momoa or Brad Pitt or somebody like that, and I'd be like, oh, they're sexy. Whereas, okay, so I think somebody who's demisexual, they would look at somebody like that, and until they got to know them as as a person, or if they became friends with them or something, or they made some kind of personal connection, then they might feel sexual attraction to them. So that would be like a demisexual. And they're under like the ACE umbrella, so there's a lot of different things. And then I learned a lot when I was in there, which is helpful in one way, because at least I can have a conversation about it. But at the same time, I don't necessarily agree with everything I've learned either. But, so like, I'm okay with people identifying as demisexual. Gray sexual would be, in no specific context, I mean, they could also identify as demisexual. So like, a gray sexual would be, like, they just experience attraction sometimes, or rarely. But they don't experience it all the time. Like, they could see somebody who's, a normal straight person would see as, I guess, attractive and not feel anything. But then every once in a while, there'll be just these people that they're attracted to. And it's just like, something that happens every once in a while. So that would fall under the gray sexual thing. So, these 5 micro labels or so, I'd say I understand them. They're not going off the deep end. They're not crazy. But when you get down to like too much below that, it starts to get pretty weird pretty quickly. So I would say the micro labels are one reason why I got really annoyed with AVEN. It's not that some of them aren't valid. Like, what did I say that I agreed with? The gray sexual, the demisexual, homoromantic, heteroromantic, and aromantic. Now that makes total sense to me. And I know some people might say, well, so you're just going to dictate to everybody what makes sense to you, and what about other people, and what makes sense to them. And I'm just saying why I didn't want to be in the group, what didn't make sense to me, what I think is stupid. This is a video about me, so that's why I'm coming at it from my perspective. Now, you might look at some of these other micro labels, even the really obscure and detailed ones, and say that that's valid or whatever, and that's okay if you feel that way. But I just don't feel like a lot of these have any basis in reality. And it's not anything against you if you identify with it, and it's not like I can control what you feel is valid, or that I even want to. But I just don't agree with a lot of these other little micro labels, like, I mean, you could say, like, for example, there might be somebody who says, well, I can only feel attraction after I see somebody exercising or something. And then they would call that like a aerobic sexual or something, aerobic romantic, or, they would call it something silly like that, and they would try to push that off as a genuine micro label that is in the real world somehow. Like, there's this whole category of people that are aerobic sexuals now, and like, that doesn't make sense to me. I'm sorry, but it does not. And I cannot just go along with that. That's not right, and it's silly, and it makes no sense to me. Okay, so like, rather, other than like the 5 or maybe 6 micro labels that actually like make sense and seem to apply to broad swaths of people, I just don't see any of the others as really valid. And you can hate me if you want to, because I'm not in the group anymore anyway. So anyway, so then there was the next category of things that really, really, really bothered me. And I think this was what finally made me leave, because the micro labels were annoying enough. But I could put up with those, because I'm thinking, okay, people are exploring, they're trying to find out who they are, they're trying to find out what's going on with them, and maybe some of these micro labels help them to feel like they're more in touch with who they are. So I could put up with it, even though I find them annoying, irritating, stupid at times. I can go along with it to a certain degree, like, okay, if you want to be a garden sexual, whatever, but, well, it's silly to me, but I can put up with it. So the next thing I was going to say is, And what really bothered me was it was supposed to be a group about asexuality, but it seemed like it was a lot more about other things. And I understand that most people consider asexuality to fall under the LGBTQ umbrella. And I also understand that there are homoromantic aces. So, like, somebody might be in a lesbian or a gay relationship without the sex part of it, or they're not attracted to their partner sexually, but they want the romantic connection or something like that. And so they might be like gay or lesbian and ace or something like that. Or they might be consider themselves straight and ace. So like they might want a hetero-romantic relationship, right? But one of the things that I noticed was that it seemed like the group was mostly about everything else that's not asexuality. So, they were always posting stuff about, pride and for like gays and lesbians. And look, I'm not gay. I'm not a lesbian. I'm ace. And the group is supposed to be about ace people. And like I said, I understand there's the homoromantic people, okay? But that it shouldn't be all about gays and lesbians, because I really think that a lot of us are aromantic and a lot of us are heteroromantic. And yes, maybe a lot of us are homoromantic, but I don't think it should be all about gays and lesbians. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a conservative Christian. I'm saying that because it's like, why make it all about them? And then on top of that, they're always talking about trans people. And I'm just thinking that's a whole different topic. Like, I understand that you can be ace and trans, or any other orientation and trans, but I don't think the group should be constantly talking about trans. It just seems like that's another topic. There are other Facebook groups. You can talk about your transition. You can talk about whatever, your trans family members. But it seems like that was what a large portion of the posts were about, especially around Pride Month. They would always talk about trans this and trans that and bathroom bills and blah, 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 and go on and on and on and on and on about trans. And if you said anything remotely conservative, oh my God, you would be in trouble. And that was another thing. And look, I understand that if you go into a group like that is technically considered under the LGBTQ whatever, that it's going to be mostly leftist in the group. And I don't have a problem with that. I've never had a problem with making friends with leftist people. It's just that they've had a problem with maintaining their friendships with me once they realize I'm conservative. But, so, my problem is that I'm okay with them saying how they feel, expressing their frustrations with maybe Donald Trump, or expressing their frustrations with, I don't know, Ted Cruz or Ron DeSantis or whatever. They can post whatever they want about that. I don't care. But if I were to make a post saying, well, I actually really think Donald Trump is a good presidential candidate, and did you know that he just had gay marriage at Mar-a-Lago? And hey, did you know that he's always been pro certain things that this group is always talking about? Did you know that? Or I could talk about how I really like his economic policy, or how I like that he's pro-life or something. If I would have gone on about that, I probably would have been banned from the group. I wasn't banned, I quit, okay? And I'm not expecting it to be a right-wing group or a conservative group or even neutral necessarily. But I feel like there's this assumption that if you've come to the understanding that you're asexual, that somehow you now have to be a leftist. Or now you have to be part of this whole LGBT community. And I don't feel like I'm obligated to do that just because I don't want to have sex with people. I feel like asexuality is really its own thing. I mean, I'm not L because I'm not a lesbian. I'm not attracted to women. I'm not G. I'm not a man attracted to other men. I'm not B. I'm not bisexual. I'm not interested in men and women, or men or women. I'm not T. I'm not trans. So why would I be part of the LGBT community? I guess queer might apply, but I mean, that's always been more of an insult. Some people use it as an umbrella term for like everybody, but and then they want to tack on all these different letters at the end. Like they tacked on 2 A's, like one of them was ally. I guess that's an ally to everybody. And then one of them is asexual, and they want to group it in with all that, and I just feel like it's not the same thing. Like not feeling attracted to people and being chaste is not the same thing as actively committing homosexual behavior. You know what I mean? It's not the same thing. Because it's goes back to that whole thing of like, is atheism a religion, or is it a lack of religion? So if LGBT is all about your sexual attraction and your gender identity, and asexuality is about a lack of sexual attraction, and let's say most of us have a normal gender identity, I mean, what does that have to do with the other? It makes no sense to me. And I had somebody tell me that whether I like it or not, I'm part of the LGBT community, and I was thinking, well, if it gets me diversity points on getting hired for a job or something, maybe. But but I don't really consider myself part of that. And I don't think everybody does. There was one group that somebody else made. It wasn't me. Somebody else made a group for conservative aces. And it had some members in it. And we would talk about our frustrations about this, about how, just because you're an ace doesn't mean you're a leftist. And of course, I know there are people in other communities that also struggle with this. I know Blair White is a trans person, and they're Republican, and they tend to get a lot of hatred from their community because of that. So, just because you fall under one of these categories, it doesn't mean you're necessarily a leftist. And I feel like people make that assumption, and then when they make these groups, they make it very hostile to anyone who's not a leftist. And I don't think that's fair, and I don't think that's good. But one more thing I was going to mention, and this was this is the final straw that broke me when it came to AVEN. And the other stuff, some of it was kind of annoying, but I could put up with it. But what I couldn't put up with was they were starting to validate some really weird stuff. And I am just talking about bizarre things that make absolutely no sense. So, I don't know if you've ever seen, like, they used to do weird, like, documentaries of weird people and stuff. And I remember watching this person who had fallen in love with a Ferris wheel or something. And they even sneaked into, like, the fairground when it was closed. And they would be, like, sucking on parts of it or rubbing themselves against it and stuff like that. Or there's been, like, people who have literally fallen in love with, like, their truck or their car. And they'll be, like, licking on the hood and rubbing on the tires and doing weird stuff. And apparently this is called... I'm sorry, but it's so stupid. Anyway, this is called objectum sexuality. And somebody was posting about that in AVEN. And I replied and I said, you have got to be kidding me. This is ridiculous. This is stupid. Are you really trying to validate this? And I got told that I was being hateful, that I was being a bigot, apparently. Because I don't see objectum sexuality is valid. And maybe I am a bigot, but darn, if the alternative is saying that's okay, then I'll take the bigot any day. I mean, it's so stupid. And I was like, I am done with this group. I'm done. I mean, not that I'm interested in an oven or anything, but I am done. So I got out. There was actually a fan fiction I read one time. It was a My Little Pony fan fiction. And it's supposed to be a comedy. It's not supposed to be taken seriously. And it's about, and the joke was that people in the fandom had shipped Rainbow Dash with everything but the kitchen sink. So somebody decided to be a smartass, and they wrote a story all about Rainbow Dash falling in love with the kitchen sink at, like, the Cakes Bakery. And, like, she would put her mouth on the faucet and stuff. So stupid. And it was a funny story, okay? It was funny. I read that and I was laughing because of how stupid it was. But, like she'd look at the shiny steel and she'd be blushing and stuff. It was so stupid. And then I go on to AVEN, and someone in there wants to pretend like that's a real sexuality that we're expected to respect. Oh no, I'm not respecting that. That's stupid. You can call me a bigot all day long, but I am not sticking around for that nonsense. So when that's not the only weird, bizarre, even creepy thing that I saw in there. But I will say that was what finally broke me. And I was like, nope. No, this is not a group for me. I'm leaving. So I had hoped to go in there and find other people that were similar to me, that had like a similar life experience to me, and that, maybe I could connect with other aces and make friends and things like that. But it just was not the group to do that in, and it's just not, and I can't. And I'm sorry, but if I go in there and I'm reacting at more than 75% of the posts, and then people like people are talking about this objective sexuality stuff, and I would laugh react, and I would say how stupid and ridiculous it was, and then people would dogpile me and get mad. That's probably a whole other sexuality, is dogpiling people, right? Anyway, I don't even want to get into that. But anyway, they'd be getting on there and like saying, oh, you need to be more respectful of minority sexualities, and I was just thinking, you guys are completely crazy. You've drunk the Kool-Aid. That is stupid, and it's perverted, and it's weird. No. Anyway, or they'd be talking about just weird, creepy stuff, and I'm like, I cannot be in this group. It's too weird. It's too perverted. It's crazy, and it's not. They're talking about things that have no validity. So what was it? The micro labels really bothered me, like and then the fact that it's really hostile to conservatives. Anybody who's, slightly right of center, they just act like you're a Nazi. And then on top of that, they want to have all this weird perverted stuff. I just can't handle it. I can't be part of it. And I'm definitely ace. I'm 100% ace. I'm not interested in romance. I'm not interested in sex. Don't want to date anybody. I don't want to get married. I'm an aromantic asexual. I should fit right in with that group, but they've made it so disgusting and hostile and everything else. I can't be part of it. So anyway, I just thought I'd let you guys know. Bye-bye.